Hey folks, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and yes, see that? I've got it on a shirt. Do you want to get a shirt? I'm not selling them yet. I'm just gauging interest. I don't know if it's going to be worth my time to, get a Shopify site and stuff and all the extra expense for that. Or if I'm just going to take a bunch of orders and then I'll actually order the shirts and then send them out. That's a really slow way of doing it, but that's the way I'm going to have to do it if interest isn't very high. I don't have a price for you yet. There should be something on the screen by the time I've finished editing this. A rough price, what it's going to be, within a couple bucks. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge. Today we're looking at the Bronte. This is a knife by Sencut. It's a liner lock knife. You've got a nice little K-tip, sort of like a folding Seax kind of style knife. Comes in G10 or micarta. I've got the micarta version. The steel on this is 9CR18 MOV, just like most of what Sencut does. I don't know, is it all of what Sencut does? I just placed an order for 2 more Sencut knives. They've got a Father's Day sale going on. I don't know if it'll still be going on by the time I post this or not. Who knows? But I'll leave links down below. Referral links for Sencut so that I get a tiny bit of a commission when you order a Sencut knife, any Sencut knife. So please use my referral links. So this guy, we've got, like I said, 9CR18. The Rockwell hardness on that's usually around 59, maybe a little bit higher sometimes. Just depends on how hard they make it. This is an end flipper or front flipper. And kind of nice. We've got a full flat grind on this blade. And look at that tip on that thing. That's a little bit scary. And we've got right and left pocket clip. So if you're in the market for something like this, that was not very good, was it? So if you're in the market for something like this, it's actually fun to use. Let's go to the tabletop and I'll show you all its details. We'll do a teardown. We'll go through all the specs. I'll let you know what I think. Keep watching. Let's start off with a close-up of everything here. Look at that blade. We've got a fuller that comes most of the length of the knife, quite close to the pivot. Sencut's branding right there. We've got sort of a recurve, but a K-tip. I call it a K-tip because it's like a Kiritsuki kind of knife or a Kangata knife, a Japanese style where you've got close to a straight clip like this at a good angle. Something that a lot of people call a reverse tanto. I hate that term because, that's not sharp. Reverse tanto. Tanto sort of implies to most Western thinkers or most Western knife collectors, maybe not thinkers, you've got 2 edges. You don't have a second edge. We do have a bit of a belly on this thing. We've got a nice sharpness choil that's plenty big enough to be very adequate for this knife. We've got a slight chamfer on the edge of the blade. There's no jimping at the top there. You can see, if you look at it this way, you can see how the fuller comes out at the end of the knife right there and how fine the tip is on this thing. If I can get it to focus there. Yeah, that's a very fine tip on that knife right there. So yeah, you can puncture into things quite well as long as you're not expecting to go super deep. Going in 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, it really pokes easily. It's a little bit thin, this tip. It's a little bit delicate, so you do want to be careful with it. We do have a gray titanium coating on it, which they then stonewashed, so commonly called a gray wash. Nice finish. I really like how it looks. The listing for the steel is right there on the flipper tab. And you can see the flipper tab's got round jimping. So easy to get your finger over and do the flip if you want to, or you can put your thumb over and flip it open that way. Works quite well once you get used to deploying the blade. Right or left-handed works just fine. So that's the blade overall, the shape and everything. The handle, we've got, actually I'll show it this way. It's a little wider here than it is here, so it's narrowing down towards the end of the handle, but it's the same thickness all the way along. Open pillar construction. We've got 2 hourglass shaped pins that hold the knife together, and then we've got 2 other pins there for the lanyard. The second one here is a guard. So you tie your lanyard on that one, and that guard there keeps the paracord away from the edge of the knife, although the edge of the knife is on this side of the that pin as well. It just helps keep it from swinging back in there. So there you go. We've got rounded liners. The edges are nicely softened. If you look right there at that corner, you can see that it's, you know, nicely softened and rounded all over, all the way around the whole thing. Well done. Time to talk about the action. The detent is a little bit soft, so it comes out a little bit more easily than it should, but you can see the detent wants to hold it shut. Lock up. That's exactly where I want it to be on a brand new knife. There's loads of room for that to wear over time, but it's fully engaged. No blade play side to side, up and down. It's done right. The lock release, right there, you can see the jimping on the side of that. There's just a little bit of a cutaway here, not a round thing, but just a little bit of a relief cut there in the handle. You can get your thumb in there, no problem, disengage the lock. Works left-handed just fine as well. So I'm very happy about that. The other thing about it is the alignment when the knife is closed. If you look really carefully, you can see light along that edge there, but clearly the blade is a little bit off to this side. It's not right down the middle. It looks okay though. It's not anywhere near rubbing, so I'm fine with it. And yeah, remember, this knife is a $50 knife, a little bit less when you get it on sale. So, well, with the micarta, it's just over 50 bucks, regular price. So yeah, the action's pretty good. I'm quite happy with it. Oh, one other thing, the balance is right there. I prefer it if the balance point was a little bit closer to the pivot screw. Instead, it's not bad, not bad. And the pocket clip, they're using T6 flush screws on the pocket clip. I like that it's fairly narrow this way compared to Civivi, but it still could be more narrow. And you've got a left side option for the pocket clip as well. That's a T8 screw to hold that together. And I've not taken this apart yet. There's going to be screws underneath the micarta, and I'll show you that in just a little while. There's, I forgot to mention the chamfer. There's a chamfer on the side of the micarta here as well, just to help it feel a little softer and rounder in the hand. The pocket clip, very functional. It's got a slightly flattened tip there. Lots of spring retention. It holds on really well. And it's a good pocket clip, full depth. You can see here, there's some room. This could be thicker by a fair bit, almost twice as thick, and still fit in there. It's a fairly well-designed pocket clip. I'm quite happy with it. It's got good retention, good snap to it, and it works. Now, do you want me to talk about how well it cuts? Well, it didn't cut all that well, and that's because the sharpening on this was done terribly. Sorry, Sencut, you did a terrible job sharpening this knife, and I'll talk about the exact angles and stuff that they got later on. But let me tell you, the combined angle, almost 60 degrees to push through stuff. No wonder it doesn't cut very well at all. Now, the next thing I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to do a full teardown, and when I do that, I'm going to go take it. Once I've got it apart, I'll take it to my sharpening system. I'll give it a new edge on it, and then I'll test it with that new edge. And I'll tell you how much better or worse that it is. You know it's going to be better. Yeah. Because I'm a custom knife sharpener. I know how to sharpen knives, and it's going to work. I can just tell. Because of how thin it is, it's going to be a beautiful cutting knife. Great slicer after I've sharpened it. So let's do that teardown now. The first thing I'll tell you is that the pivot is a free spinning pivot, but you've got a T8 head here, and there's a T8 head on there. So if you've got two screwdrivers, you can take it apart. Hopefully you've got a little table vise that you can hold it on when you do that, but it comes apart. And like I said, there's another screw there that looks like it's a T6. Let me see. Yeah, that's a T6. So let me use my little T6 driver and finish taking it apart. I'd prefer it if that was a T8, but you work with what you've got, right? So a lot of skeletonizing there. We've got ceramic ball bearings there. We've got a captured stop pin. It's got an open front, which you've known from other videos of mine. I don't really like an open front, so that's a con towards it. And there's those big hourglass pins. Yeah, very simple construction. Quite well made. No big disappointments. It's not exceptional, but no big disappointments. I've sharpened it, and it's awesome now. It's just awesome. The blade's still a little bit wet, and that's the thing with these kind of titanium coatings, because I washed it after I sharpened it because there was some stone residue on it. But yeah, that's not a blotchiness from the company. That'll dry off and be all, you know, homogeneous, looking nice in just a little while. I just didn't want to wait that long. Got a nice edge on it. Yes, and like I suspected, it cuts beautifully well now. I like it. I'm very, very happy with this thing. You want all the sizes, dimensions, those things? Let's do that next. Like I said, it's 9CR18 MOV. I said Rockwell's usually around 59. Well, when I was sharpening this thing, it felt a lot harder than that. It felt more like 61, 62-ish in that range to me. And I've got a pretty good feel for those things. So yeah, maybe it's a little harder than it really needs to be, but hey, it's hard. It took a bit of sharpening to get it that angle fixed, but I got it fixed. The weight of this knife, 85 grams, 2.95 ounces. Not bad at all. Factory sharpness, 245 bests. Smaller is better. 140 is my average from what I've tested. So yeah, 245, pretty bad. It's down below 50 now, so that's good. The length of the cutting edge, 84.1 millimeters, 3.31 inches. Blade length, tip to the closest spot on the handle, 89.2 millimeters, 3.51 inches. The thickness of the steel on the blade, 2.94 millimeters, 0.116 of an inch, so just a bit under an eighth of an inch. Blade depth is widest right here, 24.8 millimeters, 0.977 of an inch. How thin is it behind the grind? Measured in 3 spots, averaged out 0.48 millimeters, 19 thousandths of an inch. The grind angles. This side averaged to 28.4. This side averaged to 29.4. This side started at 26.9, 27 in the middle, 31.3 on the end. This side started at 30.0 degrees, and just before the last 16th of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, it was 28.8 degrees. So that's not as bad. That's 1.2 degrees difference, except for right at the heel, it went up to 31.5 degrees, just a tiny little bit at the heel where they sharpened it weirdly. This side's got 4.4 degrees of change along the length from one spot to the next. And of course, the most blunt angle was at the tip, 31.3 and 30. That's 60 degrees, more than 60 degrees pushing through stuff. No wonder it didn't cut all that well. But now I got it 18 degrees per side, and I'm loving it. The handle length, not the pocket clip because it sticks out a little bit further, just the micarta, 111.2 millimeters, 4.38 inches. The grip area between my thumbs, just a bit over 10 centimeters, a bit over 4 inches. The thickness of the handle, the surface of the micarta, 12.2 millimeters, 0.481 of an inch. The handle depth, it's widest here, as I told you before, 21 millimeters, 0.827 of an inch. And when the knife is closed, the widest point is right there, 31.5 millimeters, 1.24 inches. And the total length of this knife from tip to the furthest sticking out of the pocket clip, 200 millimeters, 7.87 inches. That's not bad for its dimensions and sizes. What do I think of this knife? I'm a huge fan. I like this knife. I like it a lot. I don't like how poorly it was sharpened at the factory, but that's a perennial song that I sing because that's just the nature of it. I will be coming out with a video soon, hopefully, where I'm talking to other knife reviewers, asking them to start measuring the grind angles, not just at one spot, but along the length of the knife, so that they can see what's really going on in the industry, and the more of us who talk about it, I think the more likely there is to be some change in the industry, because that's the dirty secret of the knife business. Factory sharpened knives are just poorly sharpened. The higher the price point, the better they're sharpened, but overall, it's a pretty bad thing. And you've heard me say that lots of times. Let me summarize the pros and cons. Pros, decent action, decent lockup. I like that. Easy to get at that to disengage the lock. I didn't talk about that before, did I either? Yep. Good access right there. Comfortable in hand. Pocket clips right and left-handed. The front flipper, easy to use. Good action. Decent balance point. Oh, I didn't show you that either. Boy, I'm missing things today, aren't I? Right there. Nice balance point. That's with the pocket clip installed. I would like the balance point to be a little bit over here. Maybe they could have skeletonized the working side a little bit more. So, yeah, that's good. And a good sharpening choil. I really like that. A lot of sharpeners' choils are done quite poorly. This one's done very well. The cons, there's not much. There's how terrible they sharpen the knife. And there's one other thing that I didn't mention at all. And that is, if you're just playing with this knife, and you're not thinking, and you try to do a front flipper thing like this, that edge there, that's where it's ground for, the liner lock to line up. That's a fairly sharp little edge there. And I did it once like that, and I pushed hard. And I got a tiny little bit of a cut on my finger. Oh, poor Jake. No, I'm not whining about it. I'm just saying that's something to think about, because it's so easily accessible right there. If I was strong enough, I could deploy the blade that way, but I'm not going to. That's pretty minor. So the problems are sharpening and just be a little careful right there. Other than that, I really don't have cons for this knife. I'm very happy with it. The other con, slightly off-center. It's not that big of a deal on a knife in this price range. Not really. Would I like it to be perfectly centered? Of course I would. But it's not a deal breaker. Oh, and finally, I don't like open fronts on knives like this. I'd much rather they put a proper stop pin over here or something, but then they might have had to make the knife a little bit bigger. But since it's got a captured stop pin right there, coming out the front, I really wish that maybe they'd made the handle just a little bit longer, and then the liner come around the outside just to sort of close that off. It's just a personal preference thing. Hopefully you watched the whole video, and if you did, I appreciate it very, very much. Thanks to my supporters. You guys are awesome. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.